I don't read fiction anymore, but I thought I should go back and read Catch22. Its tremendous popularity coincided with the Vietnam War, which many people opposed, and the book confirmed and even glorified their way of thinking about war, and that one in particular. We are now several wars removed from that time. The title of the book, the phrase it put into our language, refers to the situation of an aviator who doesn't want to fly any more bombing missions, even as the number of required runs is regularly raised. He asks a doctor to ground him because he's crazy. Do you want to fly any more combat missions, the doctor asks him. No, of course not, he says. Then you're not crazy, the doctor says, and I can't ground you. That's Catch-22. The phrase has come to mean any regulation which puts a person in a bad situation from which there is no escape, no matter what they do. The book is an indictment of war and the military operatives who conduct it. The author concluded that if you did not want to participate in war, you were sane, that war itself was crazy, people striving so earnestly to kill one another, and that those who participated in it willingly were also crazy, and the more eager they were about it, usually coinciding with a higher rank, the crazier they were. The book is full of crazy people, mostly officers, majors, colonels, generals. They behave like babies, and they would be despicable if they were not so sincerely pathetic. They are supposed to be the source of humor in the book, and this is a notoriously funny book, one that makes readers laugh out loud. I'm not so sure that I found it funny. Perhaps the fact that they and their infantile actions and desires are in power is what is funny. In the book, the lunatics are running the show, unquestionably. To even question them is treason and cowardly, and that's funny, but it's black humor because the show they are running is war, and people are badly wounded, and people die. People suffer horribly. People risk their lives, and many do not make it. Their lives are full of fear and dread and death, and none of that is funny in the least. The officers are stupid, incompetent, petty, silly, very silly, and corrupt. One private looks to be in charge of everything, mostly by default, and a mess officer is a wartime Sam Walton. The hero of the book is no hero, except in contrast to the fools who try to direct him. You could call him a protagonist because he suffers. He protests against participation in the war, and he does this by acts of insubordination, like sitting up in a tree naked during a funeral and reporting for a medal ceremony naked and marching backwards. The officers declare that he is bad for morale. He becomes what they call a thorny administrative problem, which boils down to how to keep the men fighting the war, which means how to design reality to fit their delusions. Their mode of thinking is what the author calls protective rationalization, and it's the basis for Catch-22. At the end of the book, in order to escape the war, the hero runs away. The book is a study of subordination. It's about people living according to rank and submission to authority. It's about a pecking order, and these men are real peckers. One of them is named General Peckham. The blind and total allegiance to the pecking order is mocked again and again in the book, over and over. And it's probably brilliant and certainly deserved, but it's also tedious. It's a big, long book, and it wore me out. But as I say, I don't read fiction anymore. A famous editor worked with the author on the book, but I think it might have benefited from even more famous editing. A movie of the book came out in 1970, the work of many highly creative people, and it was well received. Hell, it was celebrated, it was revered, but it was also somewhat stagnant. Because it was based on paradox and passive resistance, it didn't have any great drive to it. It meandered from crazy bit to crazier bit, and a movie about a war being the province of crazy people had already been made, Dr. Strangelove, in 1964. The movie Patton was also made in 1970, and it had drive, rip-roaring drive. It had a hero who kicked ass, took names, and most assuredly was not shoveling shit in Louisiana while any fighting was going on. Patton is one of those larger-than-life roles for which the fortunate actor won an Oscar. I think I might watch the movie again, this time thinking the general is not this fearless warrior, this inspirational leader. Maybe he's just plain crazy, and therefore the perfect man for the job.